What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, as always, Kevin Coleman, at @theboys_22, and we are back, and we're gonna have some fun today. So we've been kind of moving on into, the 23 class, looking at these guys, and we're going to definitely keep doing that. Christian Williams is doing a great job on the channel, kind of highlighting those guys, giving draft capital, stuff like that. I want to take it a step different this time, and we're going to be doing film breakdowns like we always do during the week, and we're going to pick a different athlete every week, and we're going to continue to do that. But I wanted to do a highlight a 24 class. So what I think we're going to start doing here on the channel, especially from my perspective, is start looking at some guys in that class that is coming next, right? So we know the 23 class is coming, but for us, Devy and college football guys, like, who do we expect to take that jump, right? So we're thinking guys that maybe will increase in value, those type of things. And so for this episode, we're going to talk about one of my guys, Troy Franklin from Oregon. And, the wide receiver has been one of my highlights throughout his entire career. He's a California kid, and I've liked him since then. And I do know that he has some question marks. And I think there's always been kind of question marks about Troy Franklin in terms of his production, stuff like that we'll get into. But he's just a player that I really like. He's someone that I think is very good, a very solid prospect, and he's actually performing this season. And so let's dive into just where he's at in rankings. We're going to talk about that at the end, so hang on, and just kind of go over it. So overall, let's just look at his profile this year. So we saw the numbers last year. We got a little nervous last year. We said, okay, how good is he? Like when we're just thinking of where he's at, okay, what is going on? He didn't have that great of a breakout. Obviously, that the season was a mess. The quarterback play was a mess. So when we're like thinking of like what he did, and we're thinking of, okay, where does all this stuff come from? I think the biggest thing we have to know is just the quarterback situation was a mess last year. Now we were worried though. We said, okay, hopefully he can have that breakout. What we've seen this year has been, I guess, a breakout. I think he's done very well. When you look at his numbers, 48 catches, 79 yards, 16 yards reception, and in 7 touchdowns. And he's looked good there. And I think him and Bo Nix has had a good connection. Now, where those numbers are coming from is the thing I want to kind of point to. And we're going to be looking at that, kind of going over it. But just overall, he's looked very solid this year. Big play kid, too. When you're looking at the games that he's had big, long touchdown passes in 4 out of his games this year, out of 11 games. So he's looked good. I think those are the types that you like to see. So let's get into, for him, it's just his perspective of like what he does well. So first and foremost, let's look at this. So the first things that stand out to me is his hands. I think he can catch very well. Like I know that I don't think I've ever actually seen any question marks about his hands. He has that ability. He can go up and get it. He's got the kind of the sticky hand stuff he got. I never see him really make terrible drops. I just don't see that. So when you're thinking of like, does he make bad drops? I don't see it. I think his hands are very good. We're going to watch a couple catches on the highlight tape here pretty soon of his hands. And I think they're he has some of the best hands of the 24 class. I think he has good explosiveness. And I think for me personally, I think that when you're looking at what he is, he can get off the line very quick. He was a kick returner in high school. And just when you think of that, he's a long stride type guy. He has that explosiveness. And I think his initial explosives, the line of scrimmage, that makes him difficult to cover in defenses. Like that line of scrimmage explosiveness, it's good. And then he gets over the top. This is what he is. He's a big play guy. So he's that vertical threat, as you see up there, that big play dude that goes over the top. So those are the things that you really, really want to highlight. Like when you're watching the tape and you're showing him kind of do those things. Explosiveness off the line of scrimmage. I know he's kind of smaller on the smaller end, but he still can get that explosiveness off the line of scrimmage. So if he's getting jammed, sometimes he gets away from it. And when he does, it's there. Now, when he does get separation, he creates separation, no one can really catch up to him. And he's had a quarterback this year in Bo Nix that's been able to kind of extrapolate those kind of skills, like show those strengths, because he can get it out deep and he kind of throws and looks for him. Those are things you like to see. Now, things that we're going to say that there's some concerns about. So if we're looking at this, I think size is okay. Like size is just one of those things that you're going to have to know what he is. And when you look at him, and for size, it's not necessarily his length and his, those type of things. To me, it's okay. He's 183 pounds with his size. He needs to get a little stronger. So when we're talking about him just in general, strength is going to be that thing that we're looking for. Hey, can he improve on that? I don't know if his body type is going to fill out like that. Like we're thinking like he could be George Pickens, but Pickens is a big boy, right? Like, so I've seen some comps thrown around like that. Pickens is a big boy. He's not that. So he's going to have that little smaller frame. I know 247 Sports comps on Marquise Lee, and that kind of worries me a little bit about his pro potential, right? But I do think that his size is something you got to take aware of. Route running. So, I think that when you're looking at him, the separation comes from broken plays, and the separation can come from kind of just beating everybody down the field. I don't think he can do that at the next level unless he develops, right? So I don't know necessarily if we're going to see him be able to develop into that. Now, I do think that there are some routes that he can do. I think that he's got to develop more, and he still can. We're still talking about a young kid. He's just a true sophomore, but he's got to be able to show NFL scouts that he can create that separation in routes and get open without just his long speed, because we've seen this in the NFL multiple times. Long speed doesn't always translate to, production, NFL capital. So I think that's the area. And then consistency. I mean, there's a lot of times when you're just looking at the game logs and everything like that. I mean, he had against Washington 2 weeks ago, 5 catches, 139 yards, touchdown. Against Utah, 4 catches, 14 yards. Now you get in the end zone, so people are a little bit happy about that. But we've seen this back and forth, like 1 catch for 41 yards against Colorado. Cal, 3 catches, 34 yards. UCLA, 8 catches, 132 yards and 2 touchdowns. Probably was one of his best games of the year. So you see this kind of up and down. You wish he'd just be a little bit more consistent here. And there's games too where you're like, hey, just don't be a big play guy. Go get it. And I thought he did that against UCLA. You saw that. He still averaged 16.5 yards a catch, but then you saw him also get those gritty catches. And I think that's the area of his game that he's got to improve on. Now, let's just take a look at the film and just kind of dive into what we see from Franklin. So some things about him that you like to see. So he can catch it in traffic. So you'll see it here, just kind of that, if you rewind, a little RPO type thing there. This is where I'm talking about with hands. Like, he has these catches on the sideline that you're like, damn, he can really catch that ball on the sideline. And you got to love that. And I think, again, people playing off of him, he can do this. So against UCLA, like I said, he had 8 catches, 132 yards. They really played off of him. And so that was allowed him to kind of dictate where he wanted to go, and he does a good job of that. When they dictate where he wants to go, but he can actually have that space, he does that. And then this is where his value is, right here. Now, again, just faster than everybody else. His speed is what it's going to, NFL teams will covet it. Okay, they're going to covet that. His ability to take the top off of defenses, and he gets by the guy. And you're going to see it here over on the side. But again, this is a great throw by Nick. So you're going to check it here. He sees him open. I mean, he just knows, hey, I know that he's going to beat him. I'm going to put the ball right on him. And that's what Franklin does. And this is his strength. Like, this is the one area that you like about him. Now, not a lot of nuance there. So when we're talking about, like, hey, route running and stuff, that's more of just a straight line. He had a little bit of wiggle, but not nothing crazy. So that's why we talked about that as something he could improve on. Now, this is one of his best catches of the year. Absolutely fantastic catch here. And so this is where I get into, like, where hands and that ability to kind of go up and get it. Look at his ball. Look at that high point where he's able to go get it. Then he has the wherewithal to get his feet down and get it. That's the Franklin I love. That's the Franklin I've highlighted for 2 or 3 years, basically, and said, hey, if he can continually do this at a consistent basis, now we're talking about a legit wide receiver 2 option in fantasy, wide receiver 1, that's kind of value, right? Then he finds the open space in the zone. And like I said, UCLA, this is one of his best games. And he showed it. Like, he showed what he could do in this game by scoring those 2 touchdowns, being that big play guy. And then again, here we go against Washington State. Basically, go-ahead touchdown right here. The reason why they were able to beat Washington State. Got open in the middle of the field, was able to take it to the distance. Like, these are the things that he can do. These are the things that excite you about him as a prospect. Again, open down the middle of the field, scores a touchdown. Like, those are his strengths. And I don't think we can knock those as his strengths. So I saw some people talking about this. I think you have to highlight that those are the things he does well and hope that the teams can use him, right? Now, let's talk about outlook, and then we'll get out of here. So when we're looking at outlook and what he is, so, there's some people that I respect. Austin, Devy Dietz from Campus of Canton, he talked about him being, hey, is he a sell? And I know he just kind of talked about him here. He said, hey, he's feasting on broken plays. The deck is stacked against him, needs to be sold early. And again, probably a new quarterback. I don't think it's going to be a new quarterback. I think Bo's coming back. And if Bo comes back, we're talking about him and Franklin being there. Obviously, keep an eye on that situation. But I think that he can be that guy that kind of bucks the trend. Like, when we're thinking about what he can do, I think he can buck it. I think he can go out there and he can. I know the deck is stacked against him, but he's a talented player. Now, when we're looking over the rankings, so again, on our Patreon, we have our rankings and we're all set up there for the class. And so I'm just going through my rankings and I'm updating them as we speak. We're going through them. I think he can be right there in the top 5. Like, and before, who knows? Is he better than Ja'Cory Brooks? Probably, based on the season that he's having, right? And we're just looking at that wide receiver class. Wide receiver class is pretty good, but I do think that there's room for him to grow. I would put him at wide receiver 4 right now in this class, and just behind Worthy, Harris, and Emeka Ibuka. But he's right there at 4. Are you going to get a little bit of value? Sure. Maybe you move a value and you try to grab somebody else if you're in a Devy or college league. But as far as just a prospect, I think I don't mind where he's at right now. I think he's still a value. I don't think he's getting valued high enough for you to sell, because we just did a recent mock draft at the Patreon and he was in the 4th, 5th round. And that was by me. And he probably would have slipped a little bit longer. So I don't see a market yet for him as far as Devy concerns. But I just wanted to give him a shout out because he is an excellent, excellent receiver. Shout out to him. So I appreciate you guys tuning in the channel. As always, hit that like and subscribe button for us. Smash it down there. Let us know how we're doing. We're giving a push to 700 this week, and we're going to try to get to 800 in the next week. So we appreciate you guys as always. If you have any questions, reach out to me on Twitter, on the channel, anywhere, and I will be happy to help. Appreciate you guys. We will check you guys next time.